Hi, Maria Green here. I'm going to show you today how I paint over this old painting, and it had been sitting because it had these red blobs of oil pastels on top of acrylic, which is usually okay, but oil pastels never dry, so you can't really cover them with acrylic paints. But here's some part of background that I did that's similar to what we're going to make. But I have found that you can cover up uh, oil pastels with acrylics, but first you have to use some sort of edge to scrape off as much as you can of the oil pastels, because you can get a lot of it off, but if you have a big area, that will take a lot of time. I have done it though, and it will always, no matter how much you get off, it always leaves this greasy or oily residue on the canvas. So then I just wrap the paper towel and I rub off as much as I can. And fortunately, there were only a few items here that I had used oil pastels for. I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but everything is a process. So I'm gonna use Mod Podge, and that is an acrylic. It's like a plastic layer on top. It creates a plastic barrier, but it's also like a glue. So I use it for a lot of things. You could probably use maybe media, like Liquitex medium. But another really good possibility to for a do-over is to glue some paper over the rest of the oil pastels. So that's a permanent solution. It will just never buckle. It covers it without any worries that you would have paint peeling off later, like acrylic paints would peel off if you paint them straight on top of oil pastels. So it just doesn't work. Water media on top of oil doesn't go well. Oil on top of water media is okay. So as you can see here, I tore a piece of decorative paper and I just glue it down randomly. The paper doesn't really matter if you don't care about the pattern that much. So I'm gonna also cover the whole thing after it was dry. The paper needs to be dry. And here I'm just using a palette knife to cover over most of those acrylic flowers that I had painted once upon a time. So white paint is always good. You can never go wrong with white paint. And as you can see here, I tried to rub off the dry Mod Podge, but there's just nothing budgies or comes off. There's no peeling. So you can easily just cover that up with paint, because now you have an acrylic or plastic barrier, and you could just add as much acrylic paint as you like. So the rest of the video is just me making these multi-layered background for just a funky flower, like an abstract. So I love playing with layers. I think every painting I ever did had layers, so many layers. So here it's all dry, so I'm just using a old credit card to just randomly put on some color that I like. The point of this is to have it shine through in bits and pieces in the finished project. So again, it's not all that important what colors you put on, just put something that you like. And here I'm going to use the Stabilo Woodies. They are these chunky water-soluble crayons. They're kind of like Neo colors too, kind of. But they're, I mean, you can, I don't know, cover more area with these. And they are very rich. The color is just fantastic. So I have a set of those. And I'll just add random marks. I just love the richness. And I just put some more marks. You don't really know what's going to shine through eventually, but you just keep on going. And I dried that before the next layer using my heating tool. You can use a hair dryer or just let it dry without, air dry. And I decided on this like beautiful maple yellow, I think it's called. It's kind of a beigey yellow. And I used the end of a brush to just dig in some marks. And a paper towel to lift off some of that paint. As you can see now, I have a lot shining through there. It looks messy, but you could put on 10 layers. If you weren't happy with the layers that come up, just add more or start over, just painting the whole area with white, and then you can start over. I love that about acrylic paints. They are so forgiving. Here I just did a random pickup. It was a little dry. But the fun part with the paper towels, you get the pattern from the paper towel in the paint, like little bumps and circles, and so I like that. Here I'm using the end of a brush to mark out some flower petals. And I added a bunch of water just in some area where I want to lift off more paint. Now you could do that for the whole painting and not just and see what you got. But as you can see here, I got really interesting, even down to the white. So I'm using more woody, Stabilo woody, although it's wet paint, so it doesn't cover all that well, but it rubs off some of the top layer. I like experimenting. You never know what it's going to look like, but you could always, like I said, come back and add more or change everything. There are no rules. So because the background is very much like the other blue of the flower, I add some lines just to make them more visible, or the petals more visible. And then I scraped off some paint that I didn't like. I got this sharp palette knife, but you can use any edge, anything with like a good edge to it. And I decided to make that yellow there like a focal point. You can add on more marks, like little other, colors, stripes, dots, little raindrops. um, just play with it. It's fun. You can't destroy it because it was already kind of wrecked, but it's not gonna harm it. So paint till you're happy with it, and then you're done. So I used the green woody for the leaves and then some water to activate them. And here I'm using a Stabilo All pencil. It writes on pretty much anything. So I'm using that to delineate all the things I had here. So that was pretty much it. I think I could have added more marks, but so far so good, and thank you so much for watching.